The SS had spent years terrorizing civilians across Europe, but when Germany collapsed, the tables turned fast. Captured SS soldiers were not treated like normal prisoners of war. They were hunted, and in many cases shot on the spot. What followed became one of the most unforgiving reckonings of the entire post-war period. It all started in the early 1920s, when Germany had no anchor. People waited in long lines for bread that doubled in price every day. Children saw their parents sell furniture just to buy food. Veterans who returned from World War I couldn't find work, and many young men grew up believing the country had been humiliated. This atmosphere created a perfect space for dangerous ideas to grow. The Nazi Party used that anger to attract followers who wanted someone to blame and someone strong to follow. Within that rising movement, a small guard group appeared in 1925. At first, it looked harmless, made up of just a few loyal men around Hitler. Emil Maurice, Julius Schreck, and a handful of others acted more like drivers and guards than soldiers.
But as the years passed, this small guard changed shape. When Heinrich Himmler took control in 1929, he reorganized everything. He didn't want a simple guard unit. He wanted a force that could reshape Germany from the inside. He pushed the SS towards strict discipline, racial teachings, and deep loyalty. By 1933, the SS had grown to more than 52,000 members, and it no longer resembled the small team that existed 8 years earlier. Himmler encouraged them to see themselves as elite, superior, even cleaner than other Germans. Their training schools, like the Unischule at Bad Tolz and Braunschweig, taught young recruits that hesitation was weakness. Recruits were put through harsh drills, long marches, and constant ideological sessions that erased empathy and replaced it with loyalty to Hitler alone. This type of training separated them from regular soldiers. While the average Wehrmacht recruit learned strategy, shooting, and survival, SS men were taught to erase doubt. They practiced scenes that involved raiding homes, clearing villages, and forcing civilians to kneel. They were trained to disconnect from emotion because leaders like Himmler believed that a man who felt sympathy could not carry out difficult tasks.
This mindset turned the SS into something far more extreme than a military formation. And this transformation would only get worse when war broke out. When Nazi Germany attacked Poland on the 1st of September 1939, most people expected a traditional war with tanks and infantry. But behind the front lines, something far darker followed. SS units had prepared for special actions, which meant clearing out anyone considered unwanted. Einsatzgruppen of fear under Josef Albert Meisinger moved through cities like Warsaw and Radow, carrying lists of people marked for immediate execution. The same pattern happened in Poznan, Potaw, and Kielce. Within just 3 weeks, these units killed over 20,000 civilians. These deaths didn't come from battles. They came from pointed guns in small courtyards and open fields. As the war expanded, the SS operations grew too. By 1941, Germany pushed into the Soviet Union, and the scale of killing exploded. Einsatzgruppe A, under Franz Stocklecker, swept through the Baltic states and left a trail of mass graves from Kaunas to Riga. Einsatzgruppe C, under Otto Ohlendorf, moved through Ukraine, carrying out killings in places like Zhytomyr, Baltava, and Dnipropetrovsk.
Einsatzgruppe of Bay under Arthur Neva carried out shootings across Belarus, especially in Grodno, Vitebsk, and Mogilev. More than 249,000 civilians were killed by Einsatzgruppe A alone in early 1942. Combined with the other groups, the number reached well into the hundreds of thousands within months. These killings were not chaotic. They followed orders that were planned, written, and tracked. Some SS men were assigned to gather victims. Others stood in firing lines. Others cataloged bodies. In forests outside Minsk, victims were lined up next to trenches. In Odessa, the SS assisted in mass reprisals after attacks on German troops. In Lithuania, SS units worked with local collaborators to destroy entire neighborhoods in a matter of hours. Some towns lost nearly all of their population in a single day, and the survivors had nowhere to run. In Western Europe, the SS used different methods. In France, the SS worked with the Gestapo to arrest resistance members and civilians. Raids in Paris in 1942 pulled thousands from their homes. In Lyon, the SS worked with security commanders like Klaus Barbie to interrogate and eliminate anyone linked to underground networks. In Denmark and the Netherlands, SS police forces seized families during night operations, leaving houses empty by sunrise.
Southern Europe suffered as well after Italy switched sides in September 1943. SS units treated Italian civilians as enemies. In March 1944, at the Ardeatine Caves in Rome, 335 civilians were killed within a few hours as punishment for an attack on German troops. In Sant Anna d'Isistma, SS troops carried out another mass killing, destroying an entire village. However, the worst evidence of SS brutality didn't come from these shootings. It came from the vast system of camps they built across Europe that turned the violence into something industrial. The first camps were small, like Dachau in 1933, built to hold political prisoners. But once the SS gained full control of the police and security forces, the system expanded fast. By 1938, camps like Sachsenhausen and Buchenwald had thousands of prisoners who lived under constant brutality. These places served as testing grounds for SS officers, who later ran the larger camps during the war. When World War II began, the SS started creating camps wherever the German army advanced. They built ghettos in cities like Krakow and Lublin, holding people in overcrowded areas with limited food. They constructed labor camps near factories, mines, and quarries. By 1945,
more than 44,000 camps, subcamps, and holding facilities existed across Europe. Each one had SS personnel who enforced strict control. The commandants became infamous. Rudolf ran Auschwitz, where gas chambers and crematoria operated daily. Karl Otok at Buchenwald created a system of punishments that killed prisoners slowly through starvation or beatings. Max Pauli at Neuengamme oversaw forced labor that exhausted people to death. Hans Lort at Sachsenhausen pushed prisoners through long marches and endless physical tasks meant to break them completely. Then came the extermination camps. Majdanek, run by officers like Karl Otto Kaschka and Anton Tuselas, combined gas chambers, shootings, and starvation. Treblinka, led by Imfried Eiber, killed more than 700,000 people in 1942 alone. So were Chelno and Belzec. These camps were designed to kill as many people as fast as possible. The guards were trained to follow orders without hesitation. Josef Kramer at Bergen-Belsen allowed starvation and disease to destroy thousands. Margareza at Ravensbrück became known for her cruelty toward female prisoners. Karl Frenzel at Soibor directed roll calls and selections that meant life or death. SS doctors conducted experiments that caused long-term suffering and often death. The numbers from these camps are staggering. Auschwitz alone saw more than 1.1 million deaths.
Mauthausen killed at least 90,000 through labor and torture. Stutthof claimed around 65,000 lives through shootings, disease, and forced marches. The SS created a system where human life meant nothing. As the war began turning against Germany in 1943 and 1944, the SS responded with even more extreme violence. When German forces started losing ground in Italy, SS units took out their anger on civilians. One of the worst examples came from the 16th SS Panzer Grenadier Division led by Walter Reiter. As they pulled back through the Apennine Mountains, they blamed local villagers for helping partisans. Between the 29th of September and the 5th of October 1944, they went from house to house in the area around Marabotto and executed entire families. More than 770 people were killed. Many were women, children, and elderly people who had nothing to do with the fighting. In France, the situation was just as brutal. After the Allies landed in Normandy in June 1944, the SS tried to crush any sign of resistance. The 2nd SS Panzer Division, Das Reich, committed one of the worst crimes. On the 10th of June 1944, in the village of Urador-sur-Glane,
SS troops separated the men from the women and children. The men were shot in several locations, and the women and children were locked inside a church that was set on fire. A total of 643 people died that day. The village was later left untouched as a memorial because the destruction was so complete. The same pattern appeared in Belgium. During the Battle of the Bulge in December 1944, the SS tried to break through Allied lines with sudden aggressive attacks. KF Group of Pieper, commanded by Joachim Pieper, captured American soldiers near Malmedy on the 17th of December. Instead of treating them as prisoners of war, the SS lined them up in a snowy field and opened fire. 84 Americans were killed. When news of the massacre spread, Allied troops knew that surrendering to SS units could mean death. These acts created a dangerous cycle. Allied soldiers started seeing SS troops not as normal enemies, but as murderers in uniform. When they discovered fresh massacre sites, emotions took over. Near Dachau, on the 29th of April 1945, American soldiers from the 45th Infantry Division found train cars filled with dead prisoners who had been starved and beaten. As they moved deeper into the camp, they found SS guards trying to blend in or run. Many soldiers reacted on instinct, and several SS guards were shot on sight. This wasn't the only American response. In Normandy in June 1944, Canadian soldiers learned that their own captured soldiers had been executed by the Hitler Youth SS Division. At places like Abed-Darden, at least 18 Canadians were killed. This discovery spread quickly through the ranks, and some Canadian units refused to take SS prisoners afterwards.
On the Eastern Front, the situation was even harsher. The Soviets had watched whole regions wiped out by SS units. The SS Dulawanga Brigade, one of the most violent units in the entire Nazi system, destroyed villages like Katyan in Belarus in 1943, killing the residents and burning their homes. By the late stages of the war, Soviet soldiers had seen millions of their civilians murdered and had fought through towns filled with mass graves. Many Red Army units made it clear that SS fighters would not be spared. By early 1945, the SS fought with a level of desperation that shocked even veteran soldiers. On the Eastern Front, units like the 3rd SS Panzer Division, Totenkopf, and the 5th SS Panzer Division, Viking, refused to surrender along the Oder River and in Pomerania. Some fought until their positions were completely surrounded. They kept firing even when they were outnumbered and had no chance of winning. In Hungary, the siege of Budapest showed how far SS troops were willing to go. From December 1944 to February 1945, they battled street to street under the command of Karl Fender Wimber. The fighting destroyed much of the city. More than 100,000 soldiers and civilians were killed in less than 3 months. The remaining German and SS troops ran out of supplies and ammunition. Many still refused to surrender. Some tried to break through Soviet lines and were killed in the attempt. Then came Berlin. In April 1945, the German capital was collapsing. The SS formed the core of the final defense around Hitler's bunker. They set up barricades, fired from rooftops, and ignored every call to surrender. Some SS men turned on their own people. Civilians accused of spreading fear or talking about defeat were shot by SS patrols in the streets.
After Germany surrendered on the 8th of May 1945, thousands of SS members knew their situation was hopeless. They understood that the world had seen their crimes, and many feared trials or execution.
So they tried to vanish into the huge crowds of defeated German soldiers. Some tore off their SS collar patches. Others swapped uniforms with captured Wehrmacht troops. Many burned identification papers or scratched out their photos, hoping there would be no proof of who they really were. But the Allies had prepared for this. Over the years, they had collected names, photographs, fingerprints, and reports. One detail exposed many SS men almost immediately: the small blood group tattoo under their left arm. This tattoo was used during the war, so doctors would know a soldier's blood type quickly, but it became a perfect way to identify former SS members after the surrender. In cities like Flensburg, Hamburg, and Bremen, Allied screening teams checked every captured soldier. Anyone with the tattoo was pulled aside for questioning. Many broke down and admitted their roles, but others kept lying, even when the evidence was clear. A large number of SS members fled south into Bavaria and Austria. These regions were rural, filled with lakes, forests, and mountains that offered hiding places. Some tried to escape deeper into the Alps, hoping to reach small farming villages where no one would ask questions. Others tried to blend into refugee groups moving along the roads. However, American and French patrols searched these paths day and night, and many SS runaways were captured within days. Outside Germany, the situation was far more dangerous for the escaping SS. In Czechoslovakia, the anger was fresh. Towns like Prague, Brno, and Ostra had suffered brutal reprisals during the final months of the war. Local resistance fighters started their own searches. They set up roadblocks, checked documents, and questioned anyone who looked suspicious. Thousands of fleeing SS soldiers were caught this way. When certain units were identified,
such as the SS Bolotai Regiment or the SS Deranger Brigade, the reaction was immediate. These units had carried out some of the worst crimes in Eastern Europe. Many captured members did not survive long enough to face an official trial. In Poland, the shock was even sharper. The country had been turned into a giant prison by the Nazis, filled with ghettos, labor camps, and extermination camps. When the war ended, survivors from places like Majdanek and Auschwitz recognized SS guards who tried to hide among the crowds. Some had tried to shave their heads, change names, or dress like civilians, but survivors remembered faces. Soviet troops took many of these men into custody, and several were shot in towns like Katowice, Głębice, and Winskom after quick identification. Yugoslavia saw the same pattern. Partisans like Josip Broto had fought the SS for years, losing entire villages to massacres. In towns like Krakowice, Kalwo, and around the Innovat camp system, civilians had watched neighbors and family members die. When SS fugitives were caught in May and June 1945,
emotions took over. Records saw hundreds of SS men executed near places like Marior and Ljubljana, as partisans cleared the last German pockets of resistance. But even after that, a number of SS members refused to stop fighting. They joined small underground groups called Wehrwohl. These groups were created near the end of the war by Nazi leaders who hoped the SS could still continue the fight even after surrender. Many of these men were young, deeply loyal, and convinced that Germany would rise again if they kept attacking Allied forces. Wehrwohl groups became active mainly in May, June, and July 1945. They focused on sabotage and surprise attacks. In northern Germany, small teams tried to destroy bridges near Oldenburg and Wilhelmshaven to slow down Allied movements. They placed explosives near roads, rail tracks, and power stations, hoping to disrupt communication lines. In Austria, a group hiding in the forest near Linz ambushed supply tracks that carried food and fuel for American units. In Czechoslovakia, a Wehrwohl cell near Karlovy Vary attempted to set up roadblocks and ambush Soviet patrols, firing from hillsides and then disappearing. Most of these groups were not large. Many had only 10 to 20 members. But their actions created fear because no one expected resistance after the surrender. When Allied patrols caught these SS fighters, they often reacted instantly. These men were not seen as surrendered soldiers. They were seen as active threats who refused to accept peace. This resistance, even if small in number,
convinced many Allied units that certain SS members were too violent to be handled like normal prisoners.
Investigators started uncovering evidence that shocked even experienced soldiers. In Middle Baldora, they found deep tunnels where prisoners were forced to build rockets. More than 10,000 laborers died there from exhaustion, starvation, or tunnel collapses. In Ravensbrück, they discovered rooms used for medical experiments on women. In Kim Castle, they found gas chambers and cremation ovens used in the killing of disabled people under the Acton T4 program. With all this evidence, on October 1, 1946, the International Military Tribunal at Nuremberg officially declared the SS a criminal organization. This ruling meant that every SS member, no matter their rank, belonged to a group responsible for murder on an enormous scale. High-ranking leaders like Ernst Koltbrunner were proven to have planned and directed many of these crimes, but lower-ranking guards were also considered part of the same system. Not every captured SS man came quietly. Many were armed when Allied forces found them. Some hid pistols in their boots or carried knives. Others tried to escape during searches, leading to deadly confrontations. In Czechoslovakia, during the Prague Uprising in May 1945, SS soldiers tried to seize control of parts of the city despite Germany's surrender. When captured, they were executed by people who had lost family members to SS violence.
In Poland, Soviet troops captured SS guards who had fled from camps like Gross Rosen. Some resisted arrest or tried to destroy evidence, leading to immediate shootings. In Austria, many SS members tried to blend into refugee crowds near Salzburg or Innsbruck, but once identified, American and French units often treated them as high-risk prisoners. Many were taken aside for questioning, and some were shot if they resisted or tried to escape. In the Netherlands, resistance fighters captured SS members who had helped deport families from cities like Amsterdam and Rotterdam. Many locals had lost parents, siblings, and children during mass arrests. When these SS men were captured, they were executed within hours because people believed justice could not wait any longer. Similar scenes played out in Belgium, France, Denmark, Norway, and across the Balkans. Everywhere the SS went, they left behind suffering, death, and fear. For many civilians and soldiers, the idea of protecting or trusting captured SS members felt impossible. This was the dark reason behind many of the shootings, the belief that the SS was not an ordinary enemy, but a force built entirely on cruelty, one that had carried out crimes too deep to dismiss. In the chaos of collapsing front lines and sudden discoveries of mass graves, many believed that stopping SS men immediately was the only way to prevent further harm.